We have completed all the concepts related to relative motion today, but we will discuss some questions and things related to that also. Let's begin.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. We'll also begin with with circular motion today. So this is like circular motion, but plus mathematics. So let's quickly review that concept of approach and separation velocity from last time. So what we've seen that if we have two particles or two objects which are at a particular instant, they are positioned with respect to each other like this. And they're moving, let's say, with velocities with respect to ground frame. So like this. And we saw that in this diagram, if the distance between them is s, then minus ds by dt. This is what we call the instantaneous rate or the instantaneous approach velocity. Okay. That is equal to the component of A's velocity directly towards B plus the component of B's velocity directly towards A, where all these things VA, VB, alpha and beta, they may all in general be instantaneous, so they might be changing with time. They're instantaneous in nature. Okay, so another way of understanding this is that if you look at the velocity of another object, or in this case only the object B with respect to A. So first of all, if you look at the relative position of B with respect to A, that is this vector. This vector that I have drawn over here, this is the instantaneous position of B with respect to A. Now, if I were to subtract these two vectors, VB minus VA, you probably get some vector which is in this sort of direction, let's say. So suppose it came out to be like this. So this is the velocity of B with respect to A. So I'm just assuming it's something like this because what I've done in the above diagram is that I've calculated the relative velocity just by sort of estimating that if this is VB and let's say this is VA. Supposing, I'm just saying, assuming that there are two vectors like this. Then in this vector diagram, this would be VB minus VA. So this would be the relative velocity of B with respect to A. So another way of expressing it is that if this angle is now theta, then the approach velocity is equal to the component of VBA towards A. Component of the relative velocity of B with respect to A along minus of RBA, or that is pointing towards E. This is the idea. Okay. So in this diagram, for example, what would happen is that we need to calculate that what this angle is, this vector, there's some angle theta here with respect to this line parallel to this baseline here. To calculate that. So this would be another way of expressing the approach velocity. Okay, that it is the component of the relative velocity of B towards E. So we'll demonstrate this with an example that whether we calculate it using the individual components in ground frame, VA cos alpha plus VB cos beta, or we actually calculate this relative velocity first and then find its component towards the particle A. The relative velocity of B, its component towards the particle A. It's going to be one and the same thing. Let's understand this with a numerical example. We have a situation like this, that in a xy plane, we have two objects which are moving like this, let's say. At the given instant t equal to 0, there is an object B which is moving with a velocity vector like this at a position 0, 12, and there's a particle A which is moving with a velocity VA currently located at a position 9, 0. Okay, so this is at t equal to 0. So VA is given to us as -3 I cap plus some Vy j cap, and Vb is given to us as -2 I cap in meters per second. X and Y are also in meters. So first of all, if Vy is equal to 2 meters per second, then find the instantaneous approach velocity of A with respect to B, and that is the same thing as B with respect to A. They mean one and the same thing at t equal to 0. Secondly, if A and B are going to be moving uniformly, then find the condition on By for them to collide. Okay, so the position of A is 9, 0 and the position of B is 0, 12. Actually, we'll just make life too simple. Change this to 3. Okay. So the question is conceptually quite simple, but vector algebra wise it's a little tricky. Okay, so that's why I wanted to practice this out. Okay, people, so I'm just making the vector diagram once for the first part. Okay, you can just continue with the question the way you're doing it, please. For the first part, you will see that if P is located here, comparatively A is somewhere here, such that the line joining the two of them will be like 53 degrees with respect to the negative x-axis, that kind of line. So if you're doing this geometrically, using angles and all, it will get a little tricky. Okay, but anyhow, so we can see VB is like this. Okay. And then in comparison, you can see VA will be like this. Because what you realize is that because we have taken VA as minus 3 I cap plus 3 J cap, realize that this angle is 45, which means that this angle here, this will become how much? It's become 8 degrees. So you can see that he has a magnitude of 3 root 2. Okay. At theta equal to 8 degrees with respect to the line AB. Okay. And VB we have taken as minus J cap, right? Or minus 2 J cap, is it?
So minus 2i.
Okay, if I have written it as I cap, it's wrong. It should be J cap. It was my mistake. Okay. I mean, it could have been that, but according to the diagram, it is the negative y-axis. So I have to take it this way. If it had been minus 2 I cap, then I should modify the vector diagram. Anyhow, so this is what is happening now in this case with this modification, that this is 3. Okay. So if I go with that kind of method, I can see that one way of understanding approach velocity is that it is VA cos theta, that is a component of A towards B, plus VB cos 37, the component of B towards A. So it is 3 root 2 cos 8 degrees plus 2 cos 36. Then now I can of course always write okay, so that is 1 by root 2 to 3 by 5 plus 4 by 5. So 7 by 5 root 2. It's very close to 1 actually, because root 2 is very close to 1.4. So it's just marginally less than 1, but anyhow. So 3 root 2 into 7 by 5 root 2 plus 2 into 4 by 5. So this will be 21 by 5 plus 8 by 5. So this is the approach velocity at t equal to 0. I can also do it this way, that I can understand the velocity of B with respect to A Okay, so that will become 3 I cap minus 5 j cap over here. So this is the velocity of B with respect to A. And the position of B with respect to A is going to be minus 9 I cap plus 12 j cap. So something very convenient I can also do here. I can express this as a unit vector. R cap of B with respect to A will become minus 3 by 5 I cap plus 4 by 5 j cap. So now let me explain the meaning of this thing that we're doing in context of the diagram. So in context of this diagram now, what we're doing is we're getting into A's frame. So we're looking at B's velocity with respect to A. Challenging for me. So now see, I'm looking at two things in the above equations. I'm looking at the position of B with respect to A. That one's unit vector. Okay, so this one. So in this diagram, where will that unit vector lie? That unit vector is lying here. This is R cap of B with respect to B. Okay, so it is a unit vector of B, or from B I can draw a unit vector which is pointing away from A. That is that one. And the other thing I can look at is the velocity of B with respect to A, which is 3 I cap minus 5 j cap. Okay, so that will probably look like something like this. You get an angle which is even steeper than 53 with respect to the x-axis, or this angle will be less than 37, that is making it the y-axis, because it's 3 and minus 5 as the x and y components, right? So that is a vector like this. So this is the velocity of B with respect to A. So now what I want is I want the component of B's velocity, relative velocity towards A. That's what I want. So what will happen if I take the dot product? It will give me the approach velocity with a negative sign. If I take VBA, dot product with R cap B. Okay. So this will give me the component of the relative velocity of B with respect to A along this. Okay. So it is basically negative of the component of this along RAB. Okay. Or negative of the component towards E, pointing towards A. That one. So I expect that this should be a negative quantity if it is approaching. So let's see now. So VBA dot product with RBA cap. Let's do that calculation from above. So 3 I cap minus 5 j cap. Dot product with minus 3 by 5 I cap plus 4 by 5 j cap. So that should give us what we're looking for. minus 9 by 5 minus 20 minus 4. So not only is it a negative quantity, but it's the quantity that we are looking for. Okay. So this thing here is basically, you can think of this like the separation velocity. And that's why it's coming out with a negative sign. So the approach velocity is equal to 5.8 meters per second, because this, as a vector quantity, you will understand this is the component of B's relative velocity with respect to A, pointing away, directly away from A. So that means it's the separation velocity. Okay. So the approach velocity is negative of that. And that's how you can show that it's one and the same thing as individually calculating the components of A and B's velocity towards each other in the ground frame. That was the earlier method that we used. So whether we do that or we calculate the relative velocity of one object with respect to the other and find the component of that relative velocity along that line AB is one and the same thing. Okay. So depending on in a given situation what is more convenient to us from the given data and all that, we have to apply these concepts. So concepts of dot product, projections and all that from vectors can sometimes become important.
Excuse me, sir. Could you scroll up for a minute?
Sorry, Kamali Beda?
Could you just scroll up for a minute?
Scroll up now. Okay, yeah, sure. So these are the two different methods that I'm showing over here, calculating approach velocity in a general situation like this. One is that I'm looking at VA and VB individually in the ground frame and calculating their individual components along the line AB. Okay. So this is that method, and below I have done the relative velocity approach method. So this is the component of VA towards B, and this one is the component of VB towards A. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So these are the two alternative methods, Bhavika, of solving this. You are questioning that is there any alternative method of solving this? Okay. These are the two methods we have, that either we can look at both of them in ground frame.
Yes, sir. I had texted that before you started with the second method.
Oh, right. So now you understood that the second
Yes,
method that we can also look at. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, this was just a vector example to understand calculation of approach velocity or separation velocity. Now let's come back to our whole thing of using it in different type of problems. For example, we had seen a situation or two where we can use it in constraint relations. So let's look at an example of application in constraint relation. So suppose now we have a situation like this. So let's say these are two objects that are moving like this. So at a particular instant, if PA is equal to, let's say, 18 centimeters per second, and theta at that moment is equal to 60 degrees, then find VB at this instant. Yes, that is correct. Abhinav and Janvi, very good. That's correct. Anirudh, correct. So I hope you have used the approach velocity method. Aryan, correct. Very good. To get to this answer, because I think it will give you the fastest way of solving this. So you can see that if this point has a velocity like this, let's say, and I'm now naming this point as A, then the approach velocity of A towards P is, so first of all, we have Z plus 3x must be constant. So dz by dt plus 3 times dx by dt should be 0. Okay. Now, minus of dz by dt is the approach velocity of A towards P, and plus of dx by dt is the separation velocity of the block B from the point P. So I'm writing all this in detail, but when you are solving, actually you can work all these things out directly orally only. So you can see that minus dz by dt is equal to VA cos theta, and dx by dt is plus VB. Okay, so substitute this here. So this constraint relation becomes like this. That this is our constraint, our thread length conservation constraint relation. Which in this case will become 3 centimeters per second. Okay. Let's see an interesting numerical problem based on this. So this is the top view of a smooth horizontal surface. So this is the top view of a smooth horizontal surface. Okay. Now, what is happening is that we have two particles which are joined by a thread which is slack. So we have two particles of same mass m, and they are tied by a string or a thread which is loose right now, slack. Okay. Now, initially, this one is given a velocity in this sort of direction, which is perpendicular to the line joining it. This is given a velocity in this direction, which is perpendicular to this line AB. and the distance between the two is AB. So two identical particles, A and B, joined by a thread of length 15 centimeters, are at a distance of d equal to 12 centimeters initially. B is given a velocity v naught perpendicular to the line AB. Okay. So find the velocity of A and B immediately after the thread becomes taut. Or tightens. Or becomes taut. So we will use one concept from approach velocity and separation velocity over here. And apart from that, we will also use some additional dynamics concepts. Okay, so by dynamics, I'm hinting towards impulse, momentum, force, those kind of things. So it is a bit of an advanced question at this stage for us, but nothing that we cannot handle. Okay. For example, if you think along the lines of Newton's third law and how it acts within a system, okay, that every action has equal and opposite reaction, then Newton's second law or even Newton's first law, that if the net external force on a system is zero, its rate of change of momentum should be zero. It should continue with its state of uniform motion.
So it is going down with velocity acceleration g.
No, but it's a smooth horizontal surface. Huh? So gravity is balanced with the normal reaction force upwards on both the objects. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So the motion is independent of gravity here. It's on a smooth horizontal surface. Okay, so just let me hint at the concept first. Okay, then you work out the numerical thing yourself. So see what is happening now. As long as the string is loose, there is not going to be any impulse acting on E. So its momentum was zero initially, it will remain at rest. So after some time, if B is set off with a velocity V naught like this at time t equal to zero, after some time, let's say B has reached here, but still if the string is loose, nothing is going to happen. It's going to continue with V naught. But then at some stage,
It will travel 9 centimeters.
yes, very good. If you have calculated that, then all the better. Okay. So at some stage, this distance between AB will reach the natural length of the string. And that is when what will happen, the string will jerk. So there will be an impulse that acts through the string. Okay. So this J is what we call an impulse. It's like a force acting for a short duration of time delta t, creating a jerk on A and B. Okay. So as a result of that impulse acting, you will see that A, which was at rest, if this is the direction of the jerk, A's velocity immediately after that jerk acts will be in this direction. Because impulse is equal to change in momentum and initial momentum of A was zero. Whereas for B, what is going to happen? For B, the initial momentum was in this direction. It had mv naught like this. This was the initial momentum. Okay. And the jerk is acting in this sort of direction. Let's say J. So the impulse is equal to the change in momentum. So final momentum should be equal to initial momentum plus impulse, because impulse is equal to change in momentum delta p. So if you look at the vector sum of these two, it's probably something like this. It's probably got some direction like this. So this will become MVB. Okay, so B will immediately after the jerk or the string tightening, maybe it will have a velocity in this sort of direction. So that is one thing, to understand the direction. Okay. So just after that impulse acts to tighten the string, okay, A's momentum is along the impulse on it. And for B, you have this situation, this vector diagram is showing you what is happening for B. That the impulse is equal to the change in momentum. So this is the final momentum. So the final momentum is the initial momentum plus the impulse. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, which is something going to be new for us over here, that as a system, A plus B plus the thread is isolated. That is, there is zero external impulse on it, external force or impulse on it. Okay. So the linear momentum of the system should be conserved. So this is the concept that is going to be a little new for us over here, linear momentum conservation. So what we are going to see here is that the initial momentum of B before the jerk acted will be the momentum of A plus the momentum of B after the jerk acted. So this vector relation, we'll have to apply this. Okay, so that's the second thing. And the third thing where our main application of what we've just learned comes in is that since the thread becomes taut, so approach or separation velocity, whichever we take, should be 0 between A and B. Because now this string is tight. Once it's jerked and become taut, it's remaining tight as they are moving. So always the distance between them is remaining fixed, which is that length L. So they should neither be approaching each other nor separating from each other. So this is the application that is based on what we've learned now. It's only one part of the solution of this question. Okay, there are actually three things that we are using in the solution of the question. One is the impulse momentum concept individually on A and B, as I've shown you in the first diagram and on that. And before that, the geometry part, that how much distance B travels before the string jerks. And that, as you said correctly, is going to be 9 centimeters. Okay. Because the distance between A and B, as it just about reaches 15 centimeters from the initial value of 12 centimeters, just at the moment when the distance becomes 15 centimeters, that's when the string jerks, or that's when the string becomes taut or tightens. Okay. So for that to happen, you can see geometrically. Okay. That's one thing. Then the impulse momentum concept and the concept of momentum conservation for the whole system, because the external impulse is 0. Whatever impulse the string is applying on A via B, equal and opposite impulse is acting on B via A through the string. So action reaction impulse or action reaction force. So the tension in the string that creates that jerking is an internal force. So it doesn't create any net external force on the system. So the system's momentum should remain conserved.
So is it the same concept when we release a spring from a certain height and the lower end of the spring does not move down until the first part of the spring reaches till the down part?
Yeah, but the thing is that, if it is fixed to the ceiling, then when the string becomes taut, there is an external force acting through the pivot point where it is attached to the ceiling. Got the point?
Yes,
So
sir.
momentum will not be conserved over there. Okay.
So if it is released, not attached,
If it is,
released from a certain height.
but with the string attached to a saying, no?
Yes.
So the string, the other point in the string is attached to the ceiling, right?
So string, not it is not string, so it is spring. Spring.
Spring.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so in spring's case, it is simple. Right? It's a vertical motion. There we will be using something called work energy. So we'll see as the body goes down, the one which is attached to the spring, the tension in the spring is a variable quantity which varies with the extension of the spring.
Yes.
So it has a variable acceleration. And we will see that in such cases, it is easier to use work energy theorem than to go with dynamics for, solve for F is equal to ma. Okay, so let's look at this situation now like this, that let's say in one diagram, I'm considering that the string is just about to become taut. It's not yet become taut, but it's almost there. So the length is almost, I mean, this distance is almost 15 centimeters now. So this is still having that type of motion where E is at rest. And B is going at V naught, okay. So geometrically you'll understand that actually the triangle I've drawn is not proportionately correct. This side should be smaller, but anyway. Okay, so this angle will be 53 degrees. Okay. So this is just before that impulse acts along the string and all that. And next, if we see just after, so at the moment just after the string has become taut, E will have a velocity along this direction, whereas B we said will have a velocity something like this, bit of a component in this direction. Let's say this angle is some unknown angle alpha naught. So we have the concept that here approach or separation velocity between A and B should become 0. So what does that tell us? That directly gives us a constraint relation that VA should be equal to VB
Cos alpha.
cos alpha. That is one equation. Okay. Then the other equation that we have is momentum conservation. Okay. And that momentum conservation will actually give us two scalar equations because two component equations will come into the picture. So what we can do here is it would be more convenient for our momentum conservation equation to take our x and y system like this. Take this as our y-axis, suppose, and take this as our x-axis, or even take this downward direction as our y-axis. Okay. So this angle is theta or 53, and so next if we write conservation of linear momentum for A plus B as a system. So in my initial diagram, mv naught vector should be equal to, in my final diagram, mva vector plus mvb vector. Okay. Because already told you they're of same mass. So when I write it in component form, this is mv naught minus sine 53 I cap plus cos 53 j cap. This should be equal to, in this diagram, m va j cap plus vb, or this is mvb into minus sin alpha plus cos alpha j cap. Okay. So you see something interesting here. We'll get minus 4 by 5 v naught I cap plus 3 by 5 v naught j cap. On this side will become minus vb sin alpha I cap plus va plus
Cos alpha.
vb cos alpha. J. Okay, so this vector equation results in two scalar equations. Okay, that if you compare the x components, we get vb sin alpha is equal to is equal to 4 by 5 v naught, and we have vb cos alpha plus va is equal to 3 by 5 v naught. So you get equation 2 and equation 3 like this. And further you can see that vb cos alpha is equal to va only. So if we substitute this here, this equation now tells us that 2 times va is equal to 3 by 5 v naught. So va is equal to 3 by 10 v naught. And then further it tells us that vb cos alpha is equal to 3 by 10 v naught. Okay. Because va is equal to vb cos alpha, and vb sin alpha from equation 1 is 4 by 5 v naught. So square and add these. So you can get this 9 by 4, okay, plus 16. You get something like this. This will be vb, okay, and alpha will be tan inverse of 4 by 5 divided by 3 by 10. So that will become how much now? 8 by 3. So here I'm using the concept that vb square is equal to 3 by 10 v naught whole square plus 4 by 5 v naught whole square. So from that I got this. So this is, a bit of a look ahead actually. In further chapters of physics, like momentum conservation is a part of another chapter. We'll be looking at these kind of things in more detail, but the interesting thing is here, we can just solve it by just logically understanding the momentum conservation equation and then making use of the concept of approach or separation velocity that we've just learned. Okay, so people hope the method of solving is also clear here. The equations, like initially they look a little tricky, but okay, so this I'm just showing you some sort of random applications of approach and separation velocity, which is not necessarily only for kinematics problems per se, but we are applying in other types of problems also, like constraint relations in the above one, or a momentum conservation problem in the one we just saw. Okay. So, yeah, so we will keep looking at some more examples like this also of approach and separation velocity. Okay. So next few weeks, we will keep doing some random questions every lecture where some or the other application of approach and separation velocity in constraint relations or something or the other will come. But like now we are more or less done with kinematics. Okay. I will keep aside some time in the coming week. Like I think we have a doubt session also on one of the days, plus the regular lecture that will happen in the next week. I will keep time aside for discussion of some more questions from module and doubt and all that from kinematics overall and particularly relative motion. But now let me use the remaining time today to start with the basics of circular motion so that you can also get started with circular motion. It's high time we start with that chapter. Okay. So now, and this will actually, to a certain extent, the early part of circular motion will seem like kinematics only, because we'll discuss about the kinematics of circular motion, the equations of motion for a particle when it is in circular motion. So as you know, the definition of circular motion is very simple. It is a 2D motion such that the distance from a particular point remains constant. So in other words, you are actually describing the definition of a circle. The circle in terms of coordinate geometry is defined as the locus of a moving point such that its distance from a particular point is constant. So we know that mathematically that results in a sort of an equation that if we define the two-dimensional plane to be the xy plane and the particular point from which the distance remains constant, if we define that as the origin of our coordinate system, then the locus of any moving point such that the distance OP should be constant. That means square root of x square plus y square should be fixed in length. So that gives us the equation of a circle. X square plus y square is equal to a fixed quantity, which is the square of that fixed distance. This is now the trajectory of such a particle. It describes a path which you can say is represented by this equation, which you can call as the equation of trajectory. So now we are more interested in the physics part rather than just the geometry part of such a trajectory. Okay.
So
Yes.
I had got disconnected for the last 5 minutes. Is it possible for you to just give a short recap of whatever you said?
Last 5 minutes, we have done a particular question. I'll take you back to that. Okay.
So the question I saw, but then after this, is this the first page you started with circular motion?
Yeah, circular motion is the first page. This you completed, no? This question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So equation of the circular trajectory, you can say, or the circular path. So every point on the circle satisfies this equation that x square plus y square is equal to r square. Okay. Now, from a kinematics perspective, for such a motion, we can say that at any instant, the position vector has a constant magnitude. This is another way of expressing it. Okay, this is the another way of definition of circular motion, where R is x I cap plus y j cap. Okay. So motion in the xy plane such that the distance from the origin, which is basically mod of R, is constant. So if this is a position vector at some particular time, it should always have the property that its magnitude is constant. Then we can say that it's a circular motion with the origin as the center point of the circle and the motion happening in the xy plane. Just a moment. Okay. Now, next thing we will see is to describe the kinematics of circular motion. That is the equations of motion. That is what kinematics is all about. So, kinematics of circular motion are best described by making use of something called angular parameters. Just like in general kinematics, we have the kinematics parameters like position vector, displacement, velocity, acceleration, etc. Like that, now in circular motion specifically, we have something called angular parameters for the circular motion. So they are described in such a way that if with respect to our XY system or our regular rectangular coordinate frame, of course, keeping in mind that we have taken the origin of our system at the center of the circular path. So if at some instantaneous time t, the particle's position is such that this is the position vector. Okay. If that position vector is at an anti-clockwise angle theta with respect to our x-axis. So x-axis is like our reference axis over here. So then we can say that theta is the angular position of the particle with respect to our reference axis, which in this case is our x-axis. So the first angular parameter that we define is angular position. So angular position is denoted by the symbol theta, where that angular position is the anti-clockwise angle of the position vector with respect to the reference axis, which is our x-axis. So for example, an angular position of 90 degrees is the same thing as an angular position of minus 270 degrees. Okay, because anti-clockwise of 90 is the same thing as clockwise of 270. Or an angular position of 300 degrees is the same as an angular position of minus 60 degrees. Okay, because 300 anti-clockwise is the same thing as 60 clockwise, like that. So now suppose the particle was somewhere here at time t1. So this was its instantaneous position at this time, let's say r1. So the instantaneous angular position was θ1, and now let's say after some time t, or after some time delta t, it has gone here. Okay, at time t2, which is let's say t1 plus delta t, its angular position has shifted by delta theta, because overall it has become θ2. So next thing we define is angular displacement. Or it is final theta minus initial theta. So if theta is equal to θ1 at t equal to t1 and θ2 at t equal to t2, then angular displacement is θ2 minus θ1 in the time interval delta t, which is t2 minus t1. Simple things like this one. So for example, if you're looking at the seconds hand of a watch, its angular displacement is minus 90 degrees or minus pi by 2 in 15 seconds. Or it is minus 180 degrees or minus pi in 30 seconds, like that. Okay, now next thing, which I'm sure you would have guessed, is angular velocity. That is denoted with this symbol omega. Okay, this is omega, the Greek symbol. Okay. Now just one thing we'll see, that angular velocity is actually what we call an axial vector. So it is along a unit vector which points along the axis of rotation. So you must be aware that there are two types of vectors we define in general: polar vectors and axial vectors. Polar vectors are for physical quantities which act along a line of action, like force, momentum, velocity, displacement. All these have a line of action. They act along a particular line or axis, and that is the direction of the vector. Whereas we also have a second kind of vector quantity called axial vectors, which don't have a line of action, but rather which act about an axis of rotation. So angular velocity is an example of that. Torque is an example of that. Angular momentum is an example of that. Okay. So here the vector is defined in such a way that the direction of the vector or the unit vector for that vector points along the axis of rotation. But in the chapter of circular motion, we will treat angular velocity as a scalar quantity only with algebraic sign plus minus, because we are only considering two types of circular motion. I mean, we are only considering like circular motion with a fixed axis. So either it is clockwise or anti-clockwise. So if it is anti-clockwise, the axis is coming out of the plane, so we'll write omega with a positive sign. And if it is clockwise, then we'll write omega with a negative sign, rather than representing it with the unit vectors k cap and minus k cap. Okay. So we will be using this vector notation for angular velocity in the later chapter of rotational mechanics, because there we can see that the rotation can happen about an axis which is changing. Here the axis is fixed, so there's no need to define it as a vector quantity. We can just define it with a scalar, but with algebraic sign. So this will be used in rotational dynamics chapter later. Here we are using angular velocity as a scalar, but with algebraic sign. So angular velocity is positive, implies that it is a anti-clockwise circular motion, and angular velocity being negative means that it is clockwise. Okay. So anyhow, having understood this aspect, let's come to the official definition of angular velocity. Angular velocity is equal to the rate of change of angular position or angular displacement with respect to time. So once again, average angular velocity is average rate of change of position with respect to time, and instantaneous angular velocity is instantaneous rate of change. But officially we can see that the definition of instantaneous rate of change is like this, but that we don't need because we already know differentiation. a second hand of a clock. Now this will be equal to this. In the case of it being a seconds hand that moves smoothly, not jerking. Okay, there's one type of seconds hand that goes, click, click, click like that, so it jerks. And there's another one that goes smoothly, uniformly. So we're talking about that one that goes uniformly. You will see that this is equal to 2 pi radians in 60 seconds. So it is pi by 30 radians per second. So you can also see from this that if we write with algebraic sign, it should be negative actually because it goes clockwise. Okay, now the final of these definitions, as you would have guessed, is angular acceleration. Now, angular acceleration is also an axial vector quantity, which has the same unit vector, but here we will denote it with the scalar notation. With the same sign convention. So alpha is defined as instantaneous rate of change of angular velocity. So that also becomes second derivative of angular position. Okay. And also we can use this notation. So you can also express it this way. So another important aspect is that if angular acceleration is uniform with respect to time, just a minute. Yeah, so if your angular acceleration is uniform or basically constant with respect to time, then so a simple case of integration here, or let's say initially the angular speed was omega naught, or the angular velocity was omega naught. So we get the relation that okay, analogous to like in 1D motion with uniform acceleration, we have v equal to u plus at, that kind of a relationship. Okay, and then we integrate this. So we get angular displacement just like we had in uniformly accelerated 1D motion. S is equal to ut plus half ut squared, like that. We integrate this. So we get these type of equations. Okay, so this is the special case of circular motion with uniform alpha. Now, next up, the most important part of this kinematics of circular motion, you can say, is next thing, describing position, velocity, and acceleration in circular motion in terms of the angular parameters. Now that we've understood the angular parameters, so in terms of the angular parameters, how we'll define these kinematical parameters, let's look at that next. So given that we always take the angular position with respect to our reference axis as the x-axis. So if we write the position vector in component form, we will see that position, it is r cos theta I cap plus r sin theta j cap, where this magnitude of the radius is constant. So we can see that it's like this, where it is the vector which I have written in the bracket in this equation, which is the quantity which is varying with respect to time. Theta is the quantity which is instantaneous or changing with respect to time. Okay, so now this quantity cos theta I cap plus sin theta j cap, it is given a special name. It is called the radial unit vector. So depending on the reference you are using, it can be denoted with a symbol r cap or also with a symbol er cap, but this is called the radial unit vector, okay, because it points along the radial direction. So in my diagram, you can see that the radial unit vector is a unit vector that points directly away from the origin. Okay, like this. So depending on where the particle is located, the radial unit vector is directly away from the origin. So it is a unit vector pointing radially outwards. Once you define position, and more importantly, you define position vector as some constant radius into this radial unit vector, which is constantly rotating with respect to time. Now, next thing, we'll define instantaneous velocity as instantaneous rate of change of position. So now we have to differentiate this quantity. So magnitude of the radius is constant. So this differentiation operator or the rate of change operator goes inside. And operates like this. And then of course we will use chain rule. Right, like this. And while using this chain rule, we understand that d theta by dt is nothing but the angular velocity. So we can take that common outside, and the derivative of cos theta is minus sine theta, and the derivative of sine theta is cos theta. So now we can see that this tells us that again, the instantaneous velocity has a magnitude of r omega, but it has a direction along a unit vector, which is given by the vector in the bracket. Okay. And we'll see very soon that this unit vector that we got in the bracket below here for the velocity vector, now this has a very special relationship with the unit vector above, which was the radial unit vector, and that relationship is that it's perpendicular. This other unit vector minus sine theta I cap plus cos theta j cap, it is always perpendicular to the unit vector r cap. So it is in fact called the tangential unit vector because it points along the tangent to the circle. So in a separate vector diagram, if you were to just show the two unit vectors, see that at any instantaneous position or at an angular instantaneous position theta, if this is the radial unit vector r cap, it's a vector of magnitude 1 pointing at theta, then the tangential unit vector will become like this. This is the one which is at 90 degrees to it. So it is minus sine theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. So in fact, this is called the tangential unit vector. So in the above diagram, this tangential unit vector is here. At any point, it is along the tangent drawn at that point. Whereas the radial unit vector is along the radially outward direction. This is our other important unit vector. It is denoted with theta cap or ET cap for tangential. This is called the tangential unit vector. It points along the tangent to the circle at a given point. So further from this analysis, we can see so what we can say about the instantaneous velocity vector is something that we know from before, that it points tangentially at any point on the circular path. The direction of the velocity vector is along the tangent because the unit vector is the tangential unit vector. And we can also see that the magnitude of the velocity or the speed v is equal to r omega. So there is that relationship between angular velocity and linear velocity, that v is equal to r omega. And there is that specific aspect about the direction of the velocity vector, which is always pointing tangential to the circle. Yeah, I'll explain. Okay. So, but before that, you can just additionally note down this point that the magnitude of velocity is equal to r omega, and the direction of velocity is along theta pair, that is, it is tangential direction. So with this, people will conclude today's session, but next session, we will look at acceleration. So in that, we will look at two types of acceleration, centripetal and tangential acceleration. Okay. Then next, we will look at kinematics of circular motion applications, problems and all. Then we will look at dynamics of circular motion. That is application of Newton's second law, that is net force is equal to mass into acceleration for a particle in circular motion. Okay, so you can start looking into these things. And for example, one of the applications of this will be something called banking angle of roads and things like that. So I mean, circular motion is not that big a chapter in that sense. Okay, so next couple of lectures we will be looking at all the essential concepts. खत्म करके आना 2 मिनट रख दे, मैं रख दूंगा उसमें. Okay, people. So with this, we conclude today's session. Okay. Wish you all the best. Okay, and also complete everything in circular motion from sorry, in kinematics from kinematics 2 of booklet 1. Okay. So we will look at doubts and questions from kinematics 2 also, and then cover all these things from circular motion in the next lecture. So that's it for today, people. Wish you all the best. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, guys.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir.